Mon oncle, voilà le plan de la ville. Où sommes-nous maintenant?
Nous sommes entrés par là. Et nous nous trouvons actuellement ici. Vous voyez sur le plan, il y a en effet 2 murs d'enceinte, construits à des époques différentes. Tous deux renferment la forteresse et une ville qui s'est développée à l'intérieur.
Cette tour me semble différente des autres.
Oui, elle a été construite par les Visigoths, qui employaient d'habitude les petites pierres, interrompues par des cordons de briques rouges. Cette tour-ci porte le nom de tour de l'Inquisition.
Je suis vraiment impressionnée. J'aimerais bien monter sur une hauteur pour jeter un coup d'œil sur l'ensemble.
Mais c'est très possible, si vous voulez monter par cet escalier.
Oh, regardez, mon oncle. Quelle vue splendide. Ça valait bien la peine de monter. D'ici, nous pouvons très bien voir les 2 enceintes.
Le mur extérieur a été construit par Saint-Louis au XIIe siècle pour renforcer la forteresse.
Pourquoi l'enceinte extérieure a-t-elle des demi-tours?
Au cas où l'ennemi pénétrait au-delà du premier mur, il n'était pas protégé.
Ici, ce sont les Pyrénées, n'est-ce pas, mon oncle?
Non, c'est la montagne Noire, où se trouve la ferme de Frédéric. Carcassonne est dans une vallée entourée de montagnes. De l'autre côté de la ville, vous voyez les Pyrénées. Au-delà de ces montagnes, c'est l'Espagne.
C'est donc à cause de la proximité de l'Espagne et de son histoire que nous remarquons dans la vallée une si grande influence espagnole.
Bien sûr, ça me rappelle la Californie du Sud. Descendons sur la place. Nous avons encore le temps de visiter une cathédrale fort intéressante.
Suzanne m'a parlé de cette cathédrale et de ses orgues renommés. Elle me semble étrange au milieu d'une forteresse.
La cathédrale de Saint-Nazaire est très connue. Elle a été conçue par des architectes de la région et construite au XIe et XIIe siècle.
Ces gargouilles ressemblent à celles de Notre-Dame, n'est-ce pas?
C'est exact. Les 2 cathédrales sont de la même époque. Et ces gargouilles ont été reconstruites par le même architecte.
Je suis heureuse de pouvoir reconnaître un peu les styles. Vous voyez, mon oncle, votre enseignement porte ses fruits.
Hi, everybody. I heard the timer go off, and then I just like sat there and was like blah 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 blah. Let me adjust this so that it's not so weird. It's still kind of weird. Anyways, I got a haircut. Look at that. August is coming and gets hot, and you know. Bleh. Anyways, welcome to the AV Geeks Lunchtime streaming show. I'm Skip Alzheimer, and I am putting together packets for the people that signed up on the 400th show. I notice I still have it saying 400 up here. Should change that while I'm talking to you. Anyways, we watch old 16mm films, and sometimes they're in French, like that last one was. It's pretty great. Part of a series done by Encyclopedia Britannica to teach you French as we visit various locations and do different things in France. This next film is by our good friends at AT&T, Horizons Beyond. Enjoy.
The world of the scientist, once mysterious and remote, is now coming close to the lives of all of us. Not only the satellites and space probes, but the down-to-earth discoveries, such as pressure cans for everything from perfume to paint, snapshots ready to view in seconds, and in medicine, the vaccines that are making the dread of polio only a thing to remember. Once the scientist worked almost alone, your resources. Today, with the things to be done so complex and far-reaching, the scientists are more often gathered in large laboratories with the resources they need. The goal of scientists at the Bell Telephone Laboratories is better communication, communication that is faster, cheaper, clearer, more wide-flung. Though the members seek a common goal, they seek it in many ways, and though the public will see only the final success, the road to it may represent years, perhaps a lifetime of unsung work. Not long ago, in Stockholm, Sweden, a Nobel Prize for great scientific achievement was awarded to 3 of these telephone scientists for work which led to perfection of the transistor. But this world recognition had had its beginnings some 20 years and more before. In the beginning, all the scientists knew, or suspected, was that there was something out there beyond the horizons of their present knowledge, and probing of this unknown might have some bearing sometime on some form of communication. And it did. For in June of 1948 came an historic announcement. The transistor was born, a mighty midget that would open the way to a new era in electronics. These are the original historical models. The vacuum tube, born back in 1907, had created a whole new electrical world of long-distance telephony and radio, talking pictures, radar. Now, the rugged little transistors, using far less power, would do most of the same jobs. Transistors for amplifying, for rectifying, for switching, controlling. But they would often do these jobs in startlingly different and better ways, and carry the electronic revolution into fields of new usefulness for everyone. But first, the heart of the transistor, the infinitely precise bits of germanium or silicon, must somehow be manufactured in great quantities and at low cost. Nature never got around to making germanium and silicon of the fantastic uniformity and purity the transistor must have. So these substances must be grown by man in single crystals. And then certain impurities put back to bring out different electrical characteristics, put back in quantities measured in atoms. The challenge was met. The Bell telephone discoveries have been licensed to manufacturers in many parts of the world. And what has this discovery meant to us? Pocket radios with transistors instead of tubes, lightweight portable tape recorders, the eyeglass hearing aid with the whole amplifying system concealed in the bows, and a special telephone whose sound can be amplified at will for the hard of hearing. Someday, perhaps, universal visual telephones. Even a whole telephone central office, reduced to the space of a small room, In the field of electronic computers, the thousands of tubes, some bulky, most with heat-radiating elements, will often be replaced by the tiny, cool operating transistors, giving us magic brains even smaller and more portable than this Bell Laboratories transistorized computer. Only with transistors can missiles carry the tight-packed electronic systems which guide them to their distant goals. And the satellites, following their lonely orbits in outer space, call forth all the transistor properties. For it is this amazing combination of tiny size, negligible weight, and low power draw which gives a voice to these electronic explorers and reports back their findings. In the Bell Laboratories, scientists probe 100 other horizons to make telephone service better. One group explores beyond the limits of vision, even now coming closer than man has ever come to seeing the molecules he has so long manipulated blindly. Others work beyond the normal horizons of temperature in the strange world near absolute zero. One group some years ago began a study of radio horizons, and out of their work has come another important communications discovery. As everybody knows, ordinary radio waves can be received a long distance from the sending station. But television, using much shorter waves, seems limited to line of sight from horizon to horizon, like radar and other systems using the shorter waves. But as far back as World War II, radar men in England would occasionally pick up enemy bombers before they reached the line of sight horizon. Why? And later, when the Bell system was installing the first radio relay system for transcontinental telephony, with the towers about 30 miles apart, one relay station would occasionally pick up interference from a distant cousin out there beyond the horizon. Much of this was freak reception, but there were weak signals that seemed to come through continuously. It was the kind of thing that makes a scientist think. Again, why? What was happening? And above all, could you make it happen so you could use the effect for day-in, day-out communication? In 1950, a laboratory group took this on as a formal project. True, these microwaves didn't follow the curvature of the Earth like ordinary radio waves. They beamed out over the horizon and kept on going, straight out into space. But a small portion of their energy was somehow reflected back to Earth. Not much, perhaps 1/10,000,000th of the original signal. But suppose you pushed out a signal of very great power. Then perhaps even the tiny proportion that is reflected back to Earth beyond the horizon would be strong enough to carry telephone signals dependably under some very challenging circumstances. There are many ways of finding things out in science. One is simply to try it and see what happens. Here, preliminary experiments seem to promise a really new aid to communication, one which might be used to carry voices and pictures over parts of the sea, where submarine telephone cables would be too costly, and parts of the Earth where line-of-sight towers would not be practical to build. So the group built an experiment center at the Bell Telephone Laboratories in Homedale, New Jersey, with transmitters at a most unlikely outpost, a farm in upstate New York, about 5 horizons away, and often with a noticeable difference in weather. When the engineers at Homedale would telephone the farm to tell Mrs. Newton which of the 3 automatic transmitters were to be used in the day's work, she would dial the instructions into the apparatus up on the hill, and the powerful signal would start on its way through the weather. Most of the signal would go out into space, but a millionth or a 10,000,000th part of it would reflect down to the antennas at the lab, there to be recorded for the scientists' endless routine of observe and measure, measure and observe, and deduce and imagine. They found the system a practical one. Its first use was in defense, up on the top of the world, where the terrain made conventional radio relay towers or wire lines impractical. It would feed back to defense headquarters information from radar warning nets set up to detect airborne approaching over the polar regions. Radar nets called the Pine Tree Line, the Dew Line. But now this war-fostered development has come down from the eternal snows to aid everyday civilian communication. For example, when telephone traffic between Cuba and the United States outgrew the existing submarine cables, the economies of over-the-horizon transmission favored its use for the 185-mile link. Inside each of the stations, a radar-type amplifying tube, almost as tall as a man, provides the necessary high power. The receivers are extraordinarily sensitive, and the twin antennas are very large indeed, to collect as many as possible of the stray reflected waves. The new link is designed to handle up to 120 telephone conversations at the same time. A Havana businessman places a call with his operator in a routine manner. From the city, it beams out to the station at Guanabo. Here, by the sea, it is amplified to the high power of the over-the-horizon system and beamed from the 60-foot antennas out over that 6 horizons expanse of open water. The tiny portion of the original signal reflected down to the station at Florida City is amplified again and put on the microwave line-of-sight line to Miami, and thence up the coast to New York, where a Manhattan businessman takes the call from his Cuban friend, with no realization by either of them that another marvel of science has touched their lives. The new link can also handle television, and you may recall its first live telecast from Cuba to the United States.
Buenas noches, señores y señores, y gracias por letting us entrar into sus living rooms. Or anybody's. Well, here we are in Havana, the home of the pineapple and traveling salesman, and it's wonderful to be here.
What will come of all this work and thought? Better communications for all of us, certainly. Faster, cheaper, clearer, more wide-flung. But what else? Worldwide television? Telephone links with men in space? Who knows? But there are many things still out there beyond the horizon. Things the scientist doesn't yet know, and therefore must try to find out. For as one great scientist said in an earlier day, leave the beaten track occasionally and dive into the woods. You will be certain to find something that you have never seen before.
Such a great film. Pre-Castro Cuba, and kind of talking about technologies which we very much take for granted today. Transistors and broadcasting data, analog data at the time, but eventually digital data. Really phenomenal things. We owe a lot to AT&T. Not the current version of AT&T. The current version of AT&T actually, I don't know if you remember, was bought by Singular Wireless. And I think, so this is a way tangential thing. I think one of the reasons they bought it is because AT&T owns so much prime real estate in cities across the United States. If you think about those giant buildings, windowless buildings that have AT&T on the thing, a lot of those buildings were made for mechanical switchers or some sort of automated switchers, and now are mostly empty. And I think they're just waiting. The current version of AT&T is just waiting for the big cash out, where they can, because all that stuff is, all those buildings are, there's nothing in them. And I'm amazed they're not leasing them out or, doing all that. But I read an article about that some time ago, so it's kind of fascinating. This next film, it's a Cornet film. This is part of that project where my nephew was scanning a bunch of Cornet films that we got from them, 14, 15 pallets that we got, over 9,000 films. This one is Primary Safety on the School Playground. Enjoy.
On a fine morning like this, it's fun to get to school early. Perhaps there'll even be time to play outside a little. But even when he's in a hurry, Pete wants to be careful. He wants to watch for traffic before crossing the street, both ways too. And over his shoulder to watch for cars that might be coming up to turn the corner. Yes, Pete wants to be careful. He wants to use the safe way to get to school. Here's the school playground. At Pete's school, they have a regular early morning play period with a teacher in charge. We can have fun here because there are so many others to play with. We can have fun here because we can play without thinking about cars and such dangers. And we can have more fun if everyone learns the safe way to play. There is a fence around the school playground. That helps to keep balls from going out into the street. See? Yes, this is a good place to play. Pete likes the swings, and he knows that when others are using the swings, we want to watch out so we don't get hit and get hurt. A person swinging high can't stop, so everyone must keep out of the way. When we swing, we sit right on the seat and swing straight. That way, everyone can enjoy himself. Oh, look at Sam, trying to stand up on the swing. That's no way to have fun. The right way to do things is the safe way. There's the bell for class time. Would it be safe to jump off a swing this high? No, a swing should be slowed down before it's safe to get off. And so the playing is over. It's time to go in. In the school hallway are some posters the safety committee put up to remind everyone to play safely. We'll see these posters again. Well, it's later now, and Pete's class is just coming out for recess. There are already other children playing on the playground. So what do? We go around the space where there's a ball game going on. That's to be sure we don't get hit by a ball or by someone running. Do you remember the safety posters we saw in the school hallway? There's one about watching for other games. See the girl running in front of the boy who's running toward first base? She might be knocked over. She needs to learn how important it is to play in the right place. And from that poster, we remember that safety rule on the playground. We play in the right place. Here's something the children like. But if we all crowd at once, someone is likely to get hurt. We can avoid this by taking turns. More children can enjoy the traveling rings if they don't all try to go at once. Yes, everyone has more fun when we follow the rule on another of the posters. Take turns for safety. That's a good rule, whatever you are playing and wherever you play. Yes, we learn how to play safely on the traveling rings. But wait, it looks as if Pete hurt his arm when he fell. It's just a little hurt, but he'd better go inside and have it examined. Teachers want to know when someone gets hurt. Here come some children to play on the seesaws. In one way, seesaws are like the swings. People playing on a seesaw can't stop very easily, so we have to watch out for them. it's better to stand back a little bit. Do you know another rule for playing safely? Be sure to warn the other person when you're going to get off the seesaw. There's a poster about this, too. Get off together, or someone might really get hurt. Getting on together is the right way, too, the safe way to have fun. Here's a softball game. When Johnny steps up to bat, everyone else stands back to give him plenty of room. He stands close to home plate, but not so close that he'll be hit by the ball. He drops his bat without throwing it. Dropping his bat is something Johnny thinks about even when he is happy about getting a hit. He knows the rules of the game and how to play safely. So do the others. The pitcher knows when to throw the ball and how to throw it, so it goes over home plate and still doesn't hit anyone. When the game is played by the rules, it's a good game. It's a safe game in a safe place. Here's more safe fun in another safe place, the slide. And here comes Pete getting in line. A little hurt isn't going to keep him from having fun. Pretty soon it will be Pete's turn. But something seems to be wrong. Is someone holding up the line, taking more time than his share? Yes. And what's this? Is this a safe way to play? The poster says, "Come down right. Then we can have fun on the slide without falling off." The safe way is the right way. The right way gives everybody more chances to slide down frontward and come off running. Lots of good, safe play on the playground means we're ready for work and study inside. School is a place where we learn and where we have fun, too. And do you remember some of the safety rules we've learned to help us have fun? Will you remember to play in the right place and to keep out of the way of others? Will you remember to take turns for safety and to do things in a safe way? Will you remember to get off together from the seesaw so everyone has fun and no one gets hurt? And will you remember to come down right on the slides? Sitting frontward, that's fun. The school playground can be a lot of fun and a safe place if we all help make it that way. And after school, in the park or wherever you play, will you remember the safe ways you learned at school? How many other good rules of safe play do you know?
There we go. Now we have a little bit more color. Maybe too much color. I have this new light that kind of illuminates, fills in the dark. Somebody commented I was at the beach. I was washing my car and washing some things outside yesterday. It was very sunny and hot outside. So that's why I got sun. Hey, thank you, Matthew, for the coffee. One way that you can support AV Geeks is by buying us coffee. Go to buymeacoffee.com/AVGeeks. You can also go to avgeeks.com and see other shows that we put online. I am going to be not live for 2 weeks, starting tomorrow, but I put together a bunch of shows. Some of them have me with long hair, and some of them have me with short hair. So they're all set up, and they're going to premiere at 1 o'clock every weekday for the next 2 weeks. So I might be, depending on what I'm doing, I might be mowing the lawn, I might be doing a day trip somewhere, I might be, I don't know, taking a bubble bath. But I might be watching the comments and chiming in, depending on what's happening at that time. But we've been doing this for so long, consistently. I love it, but I feel like I needed a little bit of a live break. But I wanted to keep showing stuff because we got so much stuff to watch before we're done. So much. Anyways, this next film is awesome for a couple of reasons. One is it is a sponsored film, it's a promotional film for cans. It's called Vitamin Rivers, and it is stunningly beautiful color, and kind of talks about, I believe it's orange juice. It might be frozen orange juice. But they do this roundabout route to get to talking about what they do, which is canned juice of some sort. So here's Vitamin Rivers. Enjoy.
You better not have crash landings if you want to be a senior pilot like Daddy when you grow up.
Anne's got a mighty fine point there, son. You better take her advice. What are the pictures for, honey?
Well, we're studying different kinds of fruits and vegetables in school, and I'm supposed to make up a notebook on juices. See all the material I collected? The story of fruit and vegetable juices, I'm calling it. But I don't like that title very much. It doesn't have any, glamour to it.
Well, maybe we can get a better idea from some of the material you have here, honey. What have you got?
Oh, first of all, I'm telling you, that's where the drawings come in. Let me show them to you.
Oh, say, this is beautiful. What's that supposed to be? It looks like a Chinese palace.
It is, Daddy. That's the court of the Emperor Tai Yu. Here's what my notes say. The orange was first mentioned in history about 4,000 years ago. It originated in southern China and northern India. And this one shows how the orange moved south through India. The Hindus carried them in their ox carts.
Too bad they didn't have airplanes in those days. Would have gotten there a lot faster.
Oh, fly.
Yes, much faster.
Then it says the Arabs took oranges from India over to Southwest Asia. See this one? These Arabians are carrying oranges on a caravan trip through the Middle East with all the fruit loaded on their camels. People who lived on the southern shores of the Mediterranean grew oranges for hundreds of years before the Crusaders brought them into other parts of Europe. And the first orange seeds are supposed to have come over to America with Christopher Columbus. Before sailing. This one I'm working on, this shows when other explorers came over a lot later, they found orange trees growing wild in Florida. So naturally they thought the fruit was native to this country. They didn't know then that orange trees can live and bear fruit for years and years.
That's right, Anne. And you know, all during that time, the tree never rests. You'll see ripe fruit on the same tree with newly opened blossoms. And then pretty soon, those blossoms become oranges too. I learned quite a bit about fruits and vegetables in agricultural college. Well, that was back in the days before I decided to become a pilot.
Gee, Daddy, that's great. Maybe you could help me with my notebook.
Oh, you want to put the old man to work, eh? Well, it should be a lot more fun than some of those arithmetic problems we've had lately, huh, Ned? What do you want to know?
Well, first show me how to draw blossoms on this orange tree I'm copying.
Oh, that's a cinch. Ned, run out in the kitchen and ask your mother for a can of orange juice, will you?
Okay, Dad.
I think there's a pretty good picture of an orange blossom on one of those cans we bought today.
Gee, Daddy, why didn't I think of that?
Probably because you didn't bring the groceries in from the car. I did. Okay, what's next?
Well, I haven't gotten very far. Let's see. I was going to tell how fruits are grown next. You know, where they grow best and all that.
Oh, that's easy, too. Right here in the United States, we grow more oranges, lemons, grapefruit, and other citrus fruits than any other nation. In fact, I understand it's the biggest agricultural industry in Florida and California. Texas grows a lot of grapefruit for juice, too, and so does Arizona.
Couldn't those fruit trees grow anywhere people wanted to plant them in this country?
Afraid not, Ann. You've got to have the right climate, for one thing. Very little cold weather and lots of warm sunshine. That's the only way to grow fruits full of sugars that make them tasty and the vitamins and minerals that make them good for us. Soil is mighty important, too. Why, even in Florida, the light sandy soil has to be carefully cultivated so they can grow hardy fruit trees. And also seeds have to be selected very carefully. They have to be sure to plant the kind that will grow well in this type of soil. Oh, but nature's got a lot of tricks up her sleeve. Even with the right climate, good soil, and the right seeds, growers have still another problem. All these things may grow a fine tree, all right, but it's not always one which gives the best oranges. So the growers outsmart nature like this. When a row of young trees from their selected seed has grown enough so each tree has a strong set of roots and is budding well, they cut a small branch with lots of buds on it from a healthy tree which they know produces a lot of fine oranges. Then with a sharp knife, they carefully slit the bark of a young tree near the ground, cut a bud from the branch that came from the heavy-bearing tree, and slide this bud into the slit good and tight. Over this graft, they wrap a special tape for protection. Now, after the tape has been removed and the bud has taken, which means it has started to become a healthy branch of the tree, the top of the tree is cut off. Then, when this branch has grown out a little more, it's trained up to act as the trunk of what will become a new tree. A year or so later, the tree with its sturdy, strong roots and a trunk borrowed from a tree that bears well is ready for transplanting to a grove, where in a few more years it'll start bearing tasty, juicy fruit. Provided, of course, the water supply is watched carefully and growers make sure the trees are properly irrigated. And by regular sprayings, they keep their trees and the fruit free from insects which might harm them. They also protect them from cold if necessary. Sometimes they warm the air near the trees with heating units when the temperature gets close to freezing, as it does once in a while on winter evenings. And in some places, they use large wind machines to circulate the air over the grove and keep the trees and the fruit warm. You've heard a lot in school, Ann, about vitamins, minerals, and carbohydrates. Well, oranges are packed with all these, plus fruit sugars that give us energy. They naturally have the greatest amount of these when they're ripened on the tree and picked at the peak of their goodness. Like any fruit, though, the orange is perishable when picked fully ripe, and it has to be eaten or canned within a short time. One of the most interesting parts of my college work was to follow through. From the time they loaded the trucks into orange groves on through the canning process. One of the men told me that the oranges they use for canned juice can stay on the tree right up to the moment they're ripest, because the cannery is usually only a short distance from the groves, so there's no delay in getting the juice in cans once the fruit is picked. And with orange juice so popular these days, more and more of the crop is going into canned juice. Let me tell you how they do it. At the cannery, the oranges are unloaded from big trailer trucks onto a conveyor. This sometimes takes them into storage bins just temporarily, or it carries them right on through a cleaning and inspection process. After they've been cleaned thoroughly and had a careful check for quality, they roll along to what are called the juice extracting drums. Here they roll into cups on the drums, just the right size to hold them, and are sliced in half as the drums go around. On similar drums underneath these are some inverted cups which press against each half of the orange and squeeze out the juice. Then it pours down into a stainless steel trough through machines which strain out the pulp and seeds. And these, along with the peels, are used to make fine cattle foods. Now, that's one way I've seen canners extract the juice. However, another cannery I went through once used extractors that hold the orange in one half, almost like a half, while the other half comes down under pressure and squeezes under each orange being squeezed, punches a hole in it, and as pressure is applied to the orange, the juice flows down through this tube and out into a trough, which takes it to other processing machines. Oh, it really makes you thirsty when you see large stainless steel tanks in the mixing room, full of freshly extracted juice. Some is sweetened here for folks who like it that way, and some is blended with grapefruit juice, which makes another wonderful drink. And from here, the juice disappears into large tanks where they take out the excess air it picked up when being squeezed. They told me that if the oxygen in this air was allowed to remain, it might react with elements in the juice to reduce its flavor and lower its vitamin content. Then the juice is piped quickly into pasteurizing machines where it's heated to destroy any enzymes and spoilage bacteria. But of course, not enough to destroy its flavor or goodness. Now the juice is all ready to be canned. You know, the skin of the orange is nature's way of preserving all the goodness of the fruit until it ripens on the tree. Then when it's picked, it has to be used in a short time. But man has improved on nature. He's provided a container in which all that goodness can be sealed in indefinitely, or at least until we're ready to enjoy it. That's what canning really means to everyone. And is it fast? Why, the modern machines canners use fill and hermetically seal juice in cans as fast as you can blink your eyes.
Here's a can you wanted, Dad.
Thanks, son.
But it's empty.
Yes, I see who emptied it. This little tin can is something you should really feature in your notebook, Anne, because its development and the processes for sealing juice in it are largely responsible for the great expansion of the fruit and vegetable industry in this country, giving support to hundreds of thousands of people, also making it so easy for people all over the world to enjoy fruit juices whenever they want. Look, here's an orange blossom you can copy in your notebook.
Oh, it's perfect. And you're right about them growing oranges for juice in California, Daddy. It says that's where this juice came from.
Uh-huh.
I wonder how oranges got started there.
Well, the Spaniards settled both in Florida and California. So I guess the orange went both places with them. However, growing oranges in both states is pretty much the same, even though they do have mountains and different soil conditions in California. California also grows other fruits for canned nectars that are mighty good to drink, like apricots, pears, and peaches. I'll tell you another mighty interesting thing about this business of canning juices. Even though it's comparatively young, some amazing things have been done in recent years so that more juice can get to more people. For instance, frozen concentrated orange juice, like several other juices that are concentrated, canned and frozen, is juice from which a lot of the natural water has been removed. Of course, it must be kept under refrigeration, but when it's canned, it needs much less shipping space to market. When you want to serve it, you just put the water back in again. Stir it well, and presto, you've got wonderful tasting orange juice. Don't you remember seeing Mother do it?
Oh, sure, lots of times.
Which reminds me, let's go see how dinner's coming along.
Yeah, I'm starved.
Oh, hello. Are you all getting hungry?
Well, I'm in no hurry, but I am thirsty. You mind?
Not at all. Have your pineapple juice now, Ann. It'll save putting it on the table. Well, I see you already have your favorite juice, young man. Ann, put these cans in the refrigerator, will you?
Okay, Mother. Gee, this family certainly likes a lot of different juices, Mother.
Well, I can't think of a better way for us to get some of the vitamins and minerals we need every day.
Daddy, is the grapefruit a lot older than the orange? It's sure a lot bigger.
It's probably the same age, Ann, but it's only been grown in this country about 100 years, and it's been grown commercially fewer years than that. Large quantities of grapefruit first came on the market after some severe frosts practically put the orange out of business, back in the 1890s, I think it was. Growers tell me they were originally called the shaddock, after the man who introduced the tree. But their popular name grapefruit is gotten from their habit of growing in clusters, somewhat like grapes. That grapefruit juice Mother's drinking was probably squeezed in the same way as the orange juice. Fact is, grapefruit was the first to be commercially processed for juice. Just like the orange, it's rich in the important vitamin C, and naturally very good for you.
And it tastes good, too.
So does this pineapple juice. Bet you don't know who discovered the pineapple, Daddy.
Oh, yes, I do. By the same man who discovered the Hawaiian Islands, old Captain Cook.
Captain Cook?
Uh-huh.
Oh, no, Daddy. The pineapple is supposed to have been there already.
Oh.
In school, we were told pineapples are native to South America, and that there's an old story that some Spanish ships full of pineapples were shipwrecked near Hawaii, and some of the fruit floated ashore on the island.
Sure. I remember now. The pineapple did originate in Brazil, I think it was. Yes, the natives called it nana, meaning fragrance. Then, as you say, there are lots of stories about how it got to Hawaii. But anyway, today raising pineapples is one of their most important industries. The fruit is grown in Puerto Rico, Mexico, Cuba, and several other places. I remember when I was based in Hawaii noticing how carefully they cultivated the fields. Sugar cane is planted in the lowlands and pineapple in the higher fields. After the ground is cultivated, rolls of mulch paper, which is very much like a light roofing, and the pineapple plants are put in the ground through holes made in the paper. This paper keeps in the moisture, and it regulates the temperature and keeps weeds from growing. Then follows about a 20 to 22-month growing period. Rain and lots of sprayings help to keep the plants healthy. Pineapples are not grown from seed, but from slip near the base of the fruit, from suckers that are lower down on the stem of the plant, or from the crown on the top of the pineapple. About 20 after planting, the ripe fruit is ready for harvest. Each plant will produce another pineapple 1 year later, and then the field is plowed under and allowed to rest. Ripe pineapples are wonderful tasting, but if they pick them when they're completely ripe, pineapples will spoil in a short time, or rather would spoil if it weren't for the canning process. Is used for juice has been fully ripened in the fields. This way it has the most fruit sugars and the finest flavor, and when picked, they're quickly moved to the cannery nearby. During the picking season, thousands and thousands of pineapples pour into the cannery every day. There, an ingenious machine known as the Janaka peels the fruit so that the juice, like you're drinking now, Ann, can be easily extracted. Then it's pasteurized like other juices, sealed in cans, and started on its way to our house. Say, Ann, you better not leave this juice out of that notebook, honey. Tomato juice was one of the very first juices to be introduced. And tomatoes grow all parts of the country. Hey, Ned, remember last year we had them in our garden?
Yes, but they weren't juice tomatoes. The only way we got them was in our salad.
Dear, it's a lot more convenient for us to get our tomato juice in cans all ready to serve. But maybe Daddy will plant more this year and squeeze some for you.
Oh, I'd never be able to turn out the wonderful tomato juice at Cannon. Why, in the big growing areas, they plant tomatoes with a machine, like a tractor. A man sits on each side of it, down almost at ground level, where he can place young plants in the soil at just the right distance apart as it moves along. At the same time, the machine neatly fills in the soil around each plant and also gives it a squirt of water and sometimes fertilizer. Then they're all set to start growing. Plants like that grow perfectly right along the ground, and with proper care, in a few months will be loaded with ripe red tomatoes. If these tomatoes are for canned juice, growers can let them fully ripen so they'll have the most flavor and food value, and pick them at just the right moment for trucking to a cannery nearby. It's quite an interesting sight to see thousands of these fully ripe tomatoes being unloaded at a cannery into a water-filled trough in which they float from the unloading platform right into the plant. Inside, they first get a really thorough cleaning, of course, and then are carefully checked for quality as they ride along an inspection belt. Next, the whole tomato is passed along to other machines where all its goodness is pressed into liquid form. From what are called holding tanks, this juice is drawn off to be pasteurized the same as other juices, and then filled and sealed quickly into cans. All this in a matter of only a short time after the tomatoes were judged just right for picking. Well, kids, I've talked myself right into another glass.
I'll get it.
Sure, son. Get him a clean glass, Ann.
I like all kinds of juices.
Oh, you do? Well, I'm glad to hear you say that, young man, because they're all rich in the food values we need to stay healthy, no matter how young or old we are. Say, you know, Ann, it seems to me the title you want book of yours should express what canned fruit and vegetable juices mean to us and to people all over the world. Don't forget, besides these juices we've been drinking, there are lots of other kinds to enjoy. Made from grapes, apples, prunes, and several kinds of vegetables. And just think how convenient and healthful it is for us to have all the vitamins and natural goodness of these fruits and vegetables extracted for us, canned, and then practically flowing into our own home like a lot of rivers anytime we want them. Why, that's it. Why don't you call your notebook on juices Vitamin Rivers?
Oh, Daddy, that's a wonderful idea.
Just let the kid do her school project. I mean, come on. Back off a little bit, Dad. Yeah, the reason why I couldn't remember which juice this film was about is because it was about all the juices. All the juices. And how Western civilization discovered all the plants. And propagated all the plants. Fascinating. Again, I love it. You know, it's all manufacturing. It's like how this gets here. And this film would have been shown, it was the American Can. It was a company that made cans. It wasn't anybody that makes juice. It was the people that make the cans that the juice goes in. And this would have been shown maybe at trade shows, but really, this would have been something that you could rent or borrow. Basically, civic groups, libraries would have routine like film shows, or they'd have meetings, and there was like, well, what should we show? And it's like, oh, for the cost of postage, I can get this film and I can show it to my ladies group, and we can talk about, oh, that's an interesting thing. We learned about where different fruits and, who discovered them and how they grow, how they're cultivated, and how they are turned into juice. And the reason why these were free is because these were ads. These were just, commercial ads for juice, but really for cans that contain the juice. That's why I like this film. I like the ones that are the subtle things. There's that film I have, the animated film, The Butcher, the Baker, the Candlestick Maker. I think that's what it is. But it's basically, it's about ice cream, but it's specifically about paraffinated cartons that contain ice cream that are sold in grocery stores. And so it's this weird extraction of, it's like, what's the company? We don't make such and such, but we make the things that make such and such. Is it BASF or one of these obscure chemical companies that do all this stuff, this behind the scenes stuff that makes the products that you buy. Anyways, thank you so much for tuning in today, and thank you so much for the coffee. Alex, thank you for the coffee, iced coffee. Like I said, I'm going to be not live for 2 weeks, but I will be checking in on the shows that I have programmed to make sure that they actually are being shown and premiered correctly. Facebook and YouTube did not make it easy to do it, and some of them actually went live temporarily, and I had to quickly make them go private. But they're all scheduled 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, so please join us. And I will see you live August 3rd, I think. Yeah, August 3rd, which is a Tuesday, in a whole nother month from here. But only 2 weeks away. So thanks again. Tell the world that you like AV Geeks by liking, subscribing, ringing the bell, commenting, sharing, all those things that you do via your phone or your computer or whatever. And go to avgeeks.com and see other things that we've done. If you want to buy us coffee, that's great. But everybody have a good rest of your day in 2 weeks, and then I'll be back. And it'll be great. So, everybody take care. As always, we look to the film can to tell us what to do. It tells us to please rewind, which is the opposite of what this says, which is, let me turn this off, which is basically stop, do not rewind after the last screening. So, who are we to believe? But the advice, love each other, seems like a great thing to do. So, and include yourself in that. Love yourself. We'll see you soon. Take care.